Hey guys, Morphologist here.
What's up, guys? It's Wasted Space.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. CaptainShack here.
And today we're talking about patch 1.104.
The bug patch!
The bug patch.
The bug patch.
No, it's very well. Well, the most important thing about this patch is not necessarily what's in the patch, but what's been said.
Yeah, what's in the patch notes? Upcoming biggest patch yet. That's got to mean something, and it's got to mean something when you combine it. I've mentioned this before with the fact that next week, 23rd of October, is the 2-year anniversary of Space Engineers on Steam, and you guys are going to have a look at that and work out that that is a Friday. So technically, you could release, say, a big patch on the 22nd and claim it was your 2-year anniversary patch.
Oh,
and
man.
that looks like what they're gonna do. So in order to prepare ourselves mentally for this upcoming amazing patch that we hope is coming on the anniversary, we think is, let's talk about what we saw in the video, because I think we can safely say a number of things now about planets, as well as some things that have been released by members of the community that they have discovered in the source code.
So yeah, where do we kick off? I mean, all aboard the hype train. Let's start off with thrusters, the one we know the best, the one that's been pretty
the new fancy
demonstrated.
Thrusters that they
Fancy
showed in that
thrusters,
rocket
yeah.
video, which I totally dug, by the way. That was pretty cool.
So yeah, atmospheric thrusters. We know they're atmospheric thrusters now. There's some mods up on the workshop. Secton's done a couple that are basically ripped straight from the source code. And they're atmospheric thrusters. They use hydrogen fuel, as far as we can tell. So they are sort of semi-liquid gas-fueled rocket, and they use oxygen tanks to store that fuel.
Now, are we talking like just straight up burning, like using the oxygen, just saying, okay, there's hydrogen in that, so that's your fuel, or are we talking like maybe they'll split it up? Like they'll actually be different things in containers.
As far as we can tell, it's split. So hydrogen is actually a separate entity that is mineable or somehow extractable separately. Maybe you have a plant that splits oxygen up. I don't know.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah, it could be a nice way of doing it. You know, introduce some more mechanics into it. Split the chemicals down, and then you've got various purposes for each bit. Don't know.
Yeah.
But it's certainly a case that it seems like it's actually hydrogen rather than some cheesy, well, you've got an oxygen tank and that you can breathe and you can also burn. That's both fine.
And I think that also we should note then as well, you might be asking, well, why do we need these thrusters if we already have the blue thrusters? Well, a number of you actually noted on the comment section you said things about ion thrusters and that they give off a blue glow, and I think that might be where thrusters end up being categorized as, at least the ones that we have now, and that's to say that they're using electricity, so they're not hooked up to anything. Now this is conjecture. We don't know exactly if this is true or not, but this seems to be the way they're going to be balancing it, at least in my mind. It's going to be some sort of thruster that you can only use really in outer space well, and you can use it for like navigation somewhat on planet surfaces, but you're going to really want some hydrogen-fueled thrusters for you to safely get on and off planets.
That's the only way it's going to make any sense to have these new thrusters in, really. Otherwise, technically, why would you bother using them? If you've got these ion thrusters that we know work like they do now, they're electricity powered, so they just work indefinitely as long as you've got electricity in some form, battery, reactor, whatever it is. Why would you want to use any other thruster unless it's to fill a different role, unless it's to split things out? And we've seen in that video, I'm not sure, some of you may have noticed that there's the ship that they're launching has the standard thrusters on the top of it, and those thrusters are on throughout the video, so they definitely work to some extent on planets. You know, they're on, they're not completely turned off, so there's some purpose for them, but it's only going to make any sense at all if those atmospheric thrusters are intrinsically required in some way.
I think it's worth noting as well that it's most likely going to be all the more important if you've gone to a planet to mine things, and now because we have a weight on your container, you're going to need some really powerful thrusters to get yourself out of that gravity well. So that's, I think, where those things are going to come in handy. Whereas, you know, if you had an empty ship, maybe the ion thrusters would work, but probably not.
Well, it's funny you mention that, because it's another thing that popped up in the source code since the last Patchology, was that there is now a value for ISP for engines. Obviously, we don't know what these atmospheric thrusters are going to be like. We've got Secton's mod, which I think has some values for it, but whether they're the real values or not, I don't know. But ISP, for those who don't understand it, is basically a measure of an engine's efficiency. Sort of how much thrust per pound does an engine produce. And that's a very Kerbal space programming sort of thing, and very much links into this idea of taking off a rocket from a planet, especially when laden with cargo, as Morph says, is going to be something where you're going to need to think a bit about what you're doing, and it's not just going to be a case of slap some thrusters on it, off we go.
Oh, it's such a cool idea, because we'll be able to actually build. I know the community's talked about this a lot too. Is having if you could just use the ion thrusters, I guess the community's calling them now, for anything, then what will be the huge difference between your landing craft and your actual spacecraft? And now you can design a ship with these thrusters specifically for atmospheric flight. Like, this thing's job is to go down, pick up whatever it is you've been mining, and lift off from the surface and get it into orbit. Which, yeah, pretty cool.
Or potentially even something that's got like atmospheric thrusters for going up and ion thrusters for coming down. I mean, I love the idea that there's a bit more of a challenge to building stuff. That's got to be cool. It's got to inspire people to come up with new, cooler stuff.
No, that's what we're looking for. It's more depth for sure.
I think that's what this is all about. It's bringing back the engineering to space engineers, which has been lacking for a while, unfortunately. So why don't we talk now about some of the other cool things we saw in the video, because there's a lot more ammunition we have here to talk about. And I think one of the things that people probably noticed in the video, at least we did, was the beautiful flora density.
Oh man, yeah, like those trees are thick. That opening shot of the tall grass looks so good. Like, they got a savanna in there now. Oy.
Well, and that kind of hints towards the idea maybe there are some biomes involved with this stuff as well, but I just got this intrinsic feeling, especially later on in the video, where it's kind of pushing through trees onto this valley with mountains in the background and so on, that it looked a little bit like the original Crisis almost. I got that sort of vibe from it, which was not what I was expecting. All of our experimentation with source code planets, all this sort of stuff, there's been a tree here or there. And we've got glimpses through screenshots of some very cool looking environments, but nothing quite like that. I mean, verdant is a word I'd use, and it would probably be a bit weak to describe what we were looking at there.
The one with the mountain in the background, my first thought was Skyrim, actually, where, and we'll probably talk about this later, the pseudo lake people have been talking about, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, that mountain, all those trees, it's incredible. Now, my question is, how well will it run with that much stuff going on? Because we know the scale that they're going for planets is absolutely impressive. It's huge. I mean, it really is large. So will the game be able to handle that and whatever our creations are? And then on top of that, when we're talking about the biomes, and I don't know if we've seen anything in the other patches, I don't think we have, of if these are biomes, are they biomes that will have multiple on one planet? Or are we saying like, okay, this is the forested mountain planet, and this is the deserty planet, like this is Tatooine basically, and this is Skyrim, and that's the whole planet is that way. I wonder what we're gonna see.
Well, let's start with the first part of your note there, your question really, about the performance. And I noticed this actually pretty much right away from this video, and that's everything that we've seen on planets prior to this video that's just come out of flora has been a static image. And it's very important to note that, because that said to me that there were some performance issues with the density of things, and that is why they have been working so hard at improving LOD and in performance, because what they had shown us in this video is a constant 30 FPS scrolling shot of a highly dense planet surface. And that, to me, says that yes, it looks like we're going to be able to run it at least somewhat well. And of course, this is just a guess, an educated guess, but it's a pretty convincing one.
Yeah, and I guess I should throw out here that, completely on a side note, but the videos of late have been pretty cool for the updates, and some of that stuff is obviously, you'd look at it and wonder what hardware is running behind it. And it just so happens that I know the guy that's been making all these videos, and some of you guys might as well. Zoclu has recently taken over that role as far as Keen Software House is concerned, so you can kind of have him to thank for some of these really cool looking planet teasers we've had of late, which is sweet. It's nice to see some from like the space engineers community now there with Keen doing some really cool work. But I also know that he's not sitting there on some multi-titan monster recording all these videos. He is running for all intents and purposes, a decent but accessible computer. So I'm really hopeful that what we see in these videos suggests that the performance is really there once we do finally get planets, and that's one of the things that they really have been waiting for, which is why maybe it's angered some people, maybe, possibly, maybe, definitely. But at least when we get our hands on this stuff, everyone's going to turn around and be impressed like they should be rather than disappointed.
Now, I think we should address the second part of your question, Shaq, because it's one that I've had as well. What kind of biomes are we going to expect on Earth-like planets? Are we going to have a diversified sort of planet? Is it going to be like Tatooine, where all of it's just sand and dust, or is it going to be more like Earth, where we've got the Sahara and we've got the Amazon, just these incredibly different biomes on the same planet? Because that would be much more interesting to me, at least, I think, if we had these different things like polar ice caps and stuff. We don't know yet, though. We haven't seen any images.
I'd love to see the mix. Yeah, I'd love to see the mix, especially when we're exploring, because that would add a little bit of variety to the planets we find, you know? Maybe there's an equatorial region and the rest is desert, or maybe the thing is just desert, or it's just ice. But then when we find that one that's got a mix, it would be rare. I don't know, maybe.
Well, I can maybe add a little bit of insight to this. I don't know, it depends how much has changed between the source code version of Planets and the actual release once we finally get our hands on it. But as it currently stands on the source code version, it's interesting you mentioned this sort of concept of an ice planet and a desert planet and so on. That doesn't really exist in the source code. What you've got is mixed planets. So you'll travel for a distance and you will go from an area that is very sandy to an area that is filled with trees and mountains and so on. You will travel through biomes, which is cool, and of course on source code it's a very basic version of this. So whether or not what's actually happening on the real planets reflects that, I don't know. All I know is that that's what the source code seems to be leaning towards at the moment. But at the same time, you look at the video and there was a point where we were quite clearly looking at something that appeared to be essentially Hoth. It was an ice planet. And then later down the line, you're looking at something that's verdant and green, and you can't help but imagine that that was a different planet to that first one.
Endor?
Well, yeah, it could be. But I'm just saying, you can't help but feel that it was not the same planet as that first shot was from. And so maybe they have gone so far as these different planets. You've got the ice planets, dare I say it, a gas planet.
Oh, like a gas giant would be pretty cool, especially if there's something worth mining and you gotta, build something. I always want to see game mechanics mixed with the different things you can find.
That'd be a completely different mechanic. That'd be like mining atmosphere.
Mining atmosphere, or trying to go in it and it could crush you. Maybe the gravity is too strong. I'm hyping up for this.
Fuel scoop. This is what we. Oh.
Okay, I don't think we can. Right. We're hyping it a little much here, guys.
Lost the plot for a second.
Yeah, that's
Bring
okay.
it back.
But let's go back to the patch. Let's go back to the patch real quick. We're talking about the biomes. Now, there is a shot in the last patch video where we have a space engineer. He's sitting next to his, lamp post that he's built, which is pretty nice. I dig that. He's looking off in the distance and he sees a planet in kind of an orbit, or maybe he's in orbit of the planet. Maybe he's on like a moon or something, but you can see it. Now, in the past, the images that we've seen of planets, they've looked good, but this thing looks like it's actually got an atmospheric effect and like some light scattering maybe when the light's hitting it. It looks amazing from this guy's perspective, like absolutely amazing. And
did you notice there's actually like a little moon next to it?
Yes, there's a moon right next to it that looks so good. And you just want to be like, I want to build a ship and I want to go up there because it's there and I want to do it. But we're talking about the biomes though. It looks like that may be a desert planet.
Fair enough. I mean, what blew my mind about that, I know exactly the point you're talking about, because that blew my mind as well. And what blew my mind about it was not necessarily just the way you were looking up at this other planet, but it was the way that you were looking up at this other planet from, you were clearly in your own environment and that environment looked cool. And then there was clearly the planet's own individual atmosphere. And then there was this sort of cool interference between the effect of the planet's atmosphere you were in and the planet's atmosphere of the planet you were looking at in the distance.
And how that light's hitting it,
And it had all the lighting right to reflect it. It just, I was very, very impressed by that shot. And I'm sure that was just lined up just perfect, because I know Zockley well enough to know that he does that sort of thing. He will make sure those lines are perfect. But
he's over here, nailed it.
I think now's a great time to segue into LOD, because this would not be possible without a great deal of improving the engine, improving LOD, improving performance. Whereas, we dealt with the source code planets, and even on that exact same shot, if you were on the night side of a source code planet, the grass would glow, and that was because the LOD was creating openings on the other side that you couldn't see that caused the sun to shine on the underside of the surface, making the grass glow. And it looks like that's been fixed, and not only that, it looks damned impressive. It looks damned awesome. Like when you see all of those trees, you see that distant planet with all that detail, it's just incredibly impressive.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't think anyone can argue with that. We've moved over to gushing a little bit, however, I feel now.
Yeah, we are. We should stop.
It's worthy of gushing, but
I know.
We are gushing a little bit. How about we break it down with something that makes it a little bit more real? Because there's one thing that I noticed in that patch video that I know some people are hyped about, that I don't think is quite as hype-worthy as people are trying to make out it is. And that is, we touched on it earlier, there's something that looks a bit like water.
Did you say gush?
Is that really where you started with this? You want to go with gush?
Yep, I went with gush. Segue and a half. Now roll with it.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, there's something there that looks like water. And I was live streaming when this one came out. We were playing the exploration mod that just came out, and I was one of those people that were like, "Is that water? Oh my god!" Now sitting here and looking at it with it paused, I don't know. Like, what do you guys think?
I actually, at first I was really hopeful that it was water because the texture wasn't anything that we'd seen in the source code. But I don't honestly think that they could have possibly, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm going to be really critical here and say they probably don't have water yet. It's not an easy thing. It's not a grid-based system, like perfectly flat grid-based system like you have in Minecraft. So doing volumetric water is not an easy task. And I imagine it's going to be a lot of hard work for them before they can get actual liquid water on planets. Maybe they have it done already, but chances are probably not.
Well, and perhaps I can add a little bit extra to this, because I think we've mentioned this before on Patchology, but on the source code version of planets, if you can go, there's a developer menu you can go into, and if you go into this developer menu, you can find something that says enable frozen seas with experimental in brackets. Obviously, this is quite an old version of the source code, but that's what I suspect we're looking at, is that Keen's workaround, at least for the time being, is that there will be water, but it's going to be frozen water, and it's going to be set at a sort of static sea level for the planet, which is cool. You know, it means you will get realistic formations of water where there should be. And I imagine that they'll... Pardon me. And I imagine that they'll probably build it back into the game engine and the friction engine and so on, so we'll see wheels respond to that appropriately and things like that. But I don't think we've got this pure volumetric water approach.
I didn't even think about that, like friction with the cars and stuff. If you want to drive out on some ice, or if you get like an ice-only planet, that would make some fun videos and multiplayer gameplay.
That's the thing.
I wonder if you'll have to have like a different kind of block. You'll have to have spiked tires as another block. That'd be kind of cool.
Can that be a thing? That would be epic. I would be down for that. But, you know, I get it. I mean, they got so much else going on. They're building planets right now. Maybe they'll do it in the future. But if they come out with water, though, man, talk about above and beyond for starting out early, especially volumetric water. That would be pretty epic. But yeah, no,
Well,
I bet you're right.
Indeed.
Yeah. But yeah, it's probably just ice. At least you can still collect it. You know, if you're going to go out on the deep space mission, maybe you can, I don't know, grab a bunch of ice material you can refine later or something.
You're gonna need that.
Yep.
Get yourself some oxygen and potentially some hydrogen fuel as well.
Yep. That would seem like that's where you're going to be getting your hydrogen fuel from. It does seem to make a little bit of sense, actually.
So I guess
Go.
a good place to finally wrap this up with would be to talk a little bit about spiders. Dare we?
Yes.
Dare we?
Come on, let's talk about spiders. There's spiders.
Well, we knew about spiders for a while, didn't we? We saw somebody posted some pictures of the untextured version on Reddit a while back. I could probably find the picture to put up on the video again. And we didn't know much about it then. We thought maybe it was just a placeholder, maybe it wasn't real, but...
I thought it was bull.
Yeah.
I thought somebody threw it in there. It was a mod author maybe working on something. I don't know. I'd never thought they'd actually add something.
So many people thought it was a joke,
Yeah.
referencing like the idea that it's space bugs, basically, and they're trying to squash the space bugs. It's a bug fixing period. It's just like, No, please tell me they're not that terrible. I couldn't stomach it if they're making jokes like that. I couldn't.
When we watched it live during the live stream, the stream blew up with, "Oh my God, Starship Troopers, here we come!"
Hell yes, that they get kudos points just for Starship Troopers reference. Honestly,
Like that, they blew up. They're like, "I'm gonna build a base, and there's gonna be space bugs, and my buddies are gonna be up on the walls, and we're gonna be shooting space bugs."
This
Okay.
have they not seen Starship Troopers? Do they not know how it ends? It's not going to end well for them.
Oh man.
I think this is going to be. We talked about this before, but it's worth mentioning again. It does add another layer of interest to survival, and it's not just surviving against other players, but actual AI that wants to presumably kill you. I mean, it didn't look friendly. It was chasing his
It was
engineer.
chasing the guy. Yeah. So
Yeah.
It's like, oh, lunch on the run. Let's get this done.
Can you imagine if you got potential swarms of that stuff? Like you could be mining and you accidentally disturb the Sabroid mine, like their hive.
There's like a hive or something.
Oh my God.
And then it just
Can
comes
you
after
imagine?
you.
And it's just you've opened up that, and now it's happening. You've just got waves of alien spider. Oh, I can't wait.
Like,
I can't.
now,
I
wait.
have no idea what they're doing with it, but I cannot wait to see.
Wait, are you suggesting maybe it could be something like they're underground? Because if you say that, then I think like ants, like they're burrowing underground and creating tunnels, and they just like pop out and like kill you every so often. If that's the truth, that's terrifying. You just be
They're
there
already
like,
space spiders, man.
Suddenly, a defense network means a hell of a lot more.
Indeed.
Oh
But
my.
what one note we should make is if they've got some type of NPC that runs around on the surface of the planet and interacts with the player, and we've seen it before, the developers have released things and said, okay, here is the base model of something. Modders go crazy. And I'm kind of wondering what modders will be able to do if they have like, okay, well, we've got this base thing that'll be able to maybe chase a player. We don't know anything about spiders, by the way. I just want to make that clear. We saw the shadows of the spider and I assume a space engineer running past the screen, and that's like the gist of our information, at least my information. But
I just immediately see Tyranids now.
you can't help it now. You can't help it. Or aliens from the movie Aliens. But yeah, like what kind of mods will we see? Will we see new skins? Maybe creature factions? I don't know. I'd love to see what the mod authors could do with something like that, though, because if it's there, they probably could mod it.
and I think that's a great thing that like there's AI being introduced to the game, and it's going to be more variable and diverse, and that would make a much more interesting experience for doing survival, I think.
Well, and what a great question to end on as well. I mean, what do you guys think is going to be what modders make of planets? I mean, in particular, let's talk about what modders make of the Sabroids and what they could do with this alien AI, essentially. But also, more in general, what could the modders really make out of planets when they come? We're starting to get this idea. We've even seen guys like Secton start to do stuff with the planets things even before they're even out yet.
Those thrusters.
which shows you what the modders are capable of. What do you guys think should come next for them? You know, what is going to be that next big mod that kind of revolutionizes stuff when planets come out?
Yeah, what are you looking forward to? What would you like to see? And that'll probably give some modders some ideas too. So if you share it, who knows, maybe it'll actually happen when planets do come out.
Indeed.
Anyway, guys, I want to thank you for listening to Patchology this week. And next week, hopefully, we're going to be talking about the released version of planets. But other than that, guys, hope to see you next time.
Yeah, in before we get it completely wrong and planets don't come for 2 more months.
It was Morph that said it, so if you're going to blame
I
anybody,
said
guys,
hopefully. I said
angry
hopefully,
commented
okay?
Morph.
Damn, what have I started? All right, Wasted Space signing out.
This is CaptainShack, signing out. Later, guys.